Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, children. Welcome to the online teaching academy Ekalaiva. Today we are going to have a very interesting chapter, children. What is it? The topic is poverty as a challenge. This is the third lesson in economic, children. In the first chapter, we got to know about the factors of production, that is land, labor, physical capital, and of course human capital. In the second chapter, we got to know about the people as a resource, how a human being is said to be an asset or a liability. Now, in this chapter, we are going to study about poverty as a challenge. We already know, children, that India is said to be an overpopulated nation, and every fourth person in India is considered as a poor person, it seems. So, on the whole, we can come to a conclusion almost 27 crore of people are said to be people who are in poverty level. Right? Now, we will just read about the poverty, and I'll be just giving you the introduction of this chapter with the two typical case of poverty. So, why this poverty is given so much of importance? What is the measures taken by the Indian government in order to just evade the poverty from the society? Whether those measures are being taken considerably and consistently, and whether still more challenges are there, we are going to see in this chapter, children. Shall we move on to the lesson? Yes. Now, before starting, I have to give you the definition of poverty. So, what do you mean by poverty, children? Poverty is nothing but the person or the people who did not have the basic necessities, who do not have the basic necessities. What are those, children? Can anyone say? Yes, that is food, clothing, and shelter. Did you all get it, children? Now, we will just have a quick introduction of what all we are going to study in this chapter. Firstly, we are going to study two typical case of poverty. Of poverty. Followed by poverty seen by the social scientist, and their brief description about social exclusion and vulnerability. Now, who are these social scientists? In science, we study about these scientists as the one who invents, who discovers, or a personalities who does a research. But as far as the social scientist means, the one who thinks that society itself is a scientific one, where they just have a research in the society and give out certain solution about it. Thirdly, we are going to study about the poverty line. Now, what do you mean by this poverty line, children? Poverty line is nothing but where we will be having a actual border. Now, what is this actual border? That is, for example, we will just have an estimation here, and we might think that the personalities who are under these are said to be the people who are under the poverty line, and the one who are above this, we can get to know that they do have certain basic necessities. Then, interstate disparities. Interstate disparities. What do you mean by this, children? By the topic itself, you can come to a conclusion where we can see to it that certain state is said to be very much rich and the other states are said to be poor. So, for example, we can just say Uttar Pradesh and all is said to be a rich state where they do have a lot of cultivation, where we can see to it that they do have good production, good output, and to an extent, it is said to be a well cultivable land as such. But when you come to the Rajasthan, the same cannot be repeated because it is almost a desert, and we can see the people facing certain crisis over there. Then, so, what are the causes of poverty, children? So, if we get a solution for these causes, we have done certain or we have given certain solution to all these problems. So, causes of poverty. Then, as I told you just now, just finding out anti poverty measures, anti-poverty measures. So, finding out a solution and giving measures to these causes of poverty. Finally, we are going to the challenges ahead. Now, you might ask me a question, children. Ma'am, you have just said that we do have a causes and a solution is given through the measures. Then how our challenges are more? See, children, even though we have given certain measures, there will be certain things where we have to prove ourselves, where there it will be a really challenging one. Of course, even when we go in depth, we can find a solution for it. So I have made it clear, I think so. Children, I've given you the definition. What do you mean by poverty? And two typical cases which we are going to study in this chapter. And of course, the social scientist, what he is going to say about the social exclusion and vulnerability and poverty line, interstate disparities, and what do you mean by poverty and what are its causes. Finally, we can get to know the measures and the challenges ahead. Now, with this description, we can just have an overview, children. When the people are having certain basic necessities, is it enough? Then still it is a question mark. It's not enough if the people are having food, clothing, and shelter, children. They should have a health care, they should have education, they should have good sanitation. So all these are compiled together to make up people that they are not in a poverty stage. Now you can see in a temple or in any places where you can see lots of beggars where they are just having a stretching hand in order to get certain money or to make their life to go on. They live in a small juggies and they don't have a permanent shelter where their cloth would have been torn, where we'll be having a very pity face when we see them. So, in order to just avoid all these things and evade poverty from the society, we are reading this chapter. Not only that, children, today's children are said to be tomorrow's citizen. It is on your hand how you are going to make a society and how you are going to lead a country without these poor people. So, economically, also, we can say to or we can come to a conclusion if poor people is not there in a country, of course, we will be the one who is said to be very much developed nation. Shall we move on to the two typical cases, children? Yes. Now, again, you might pose a question on me. Ma'am, why, ma'am, always we have to study an example on these economic chapters? Whether it is coming for the exam? No, children. My answer is no. It is not coming the exam or you won't have a test based on these stories. But when we tell the stories, you will get an conceptual theory of this lesson. You will get to know the actual theme of this lesson. For that purpose only, we are just going with the example. For example, in People as a Resource, we got to say about the Vilas and Sakal, where you had a clear picture of the people who had education and the one who did not have the education, and you got to know how Sakal became successful and how Vilas had a utter failure in his life. right? Likewise, with these two cases, you can get to know what are the actual problem faced in the urban case and in the rural case as such. Shall we move on to the example, children? Yes. Now, the person who is living in the urban area, his name was Ram Saran. Okay, Ram Saran. So he was almost 33-year old and was working in a mill. Okay, and he had four children. Did you get it, children? He had four children who was almost from 12 years to 6 months. Right? His wife Santa Devi and her parents-in-law who were living in a village was having a lot of expectation and waiting for the money which has to be given by Ram Saran. Now, how the family is leading their life, we will just see, children. Now, you got to know almost Ram Saran was having six people, including him, and he has to look after his own parents as such. So, he was getting a salary of 1,500, and his wife Santa Devi was earning almost 800 rupees, working as a domestic maid in many houses. And you had his little, that is the elder son, who was earning 300 rupees from a tea shop. Now, on the whole, Ram Saran has to look after his family with this money, and he has to pay his parents the remaining amount, who is said to be very old and almost depending on him. Right? We will have this story aside. Now we'll move on to the rural case, children. Laka Singh. Now, what is Laka Singh doing? Laka Singh was said to be a person who was working in others' land as he was having not his own land. His wife also was working in the same field. His father passed away 2 years back because he was said to be a TB patient, and Laka Singh could not afford to give him a good medication as he had no money. The same thing his mother was also facing, and she was very ill. On the whole, Laka Singh was having 8 members in his family. He did not have any schooling in his childhood, right, children? And he was getting a lot of things as kind, but not the money. For example, the owner of the land used to give him wheat or production, whatever was happening, like vegetables or anything which was in the field. With that, he has to manage his daily life. Now, you can see lots of drawbacks in these two children. Can you say me what are the drawbacks? What are the drawbacks which you can see in these two? The first one, you can see the child labor. Can you say who is that who is just going for work, children, and who is said to be a child? That is, of course, Ram Saran's elder son who was working in a tea shop, right? Secondly, illiteracy. Now you can see this thing in both the sides. That is, you can see Ram Saran's four children were not being educated and he himself was uneducated. The same thing with Laka Singh, who had a government school in his village, but he could not go to the school because he has to go for work when he was at 10 years. Now, thirdly, unemployment. If Laka Singh was having his own field, really would have enjoyed and had a very good life, but it is not there. The same thing over here. That is, Ram Saran was not said to be a person who was getting the job throughout the year. Any time he might be removed from his job. And of course, Laka Singh is said to be having a seasonal unemployment. So when the season is there, he was employed for sowing and harvesting. When the season is not there, he has to find out another job. Malnutrition, children. What do you mean by this? That is, you can see in both the cases that they were having just uh, 2 meals per day, and no, and the food what they were having is said to be very much less. And you can see almost the family of Ram Saran where they were having just a dal, and the small kid was not having enough milk to drink, children. So lots of drawbacks are there when I just say. So you do have the similarities also where you can face the same consequences in both the cases. Now we will go for the dimensions of poverty in these two cases, children. So what are the dimensions which we can see here, right? Lack of shelter, okay. See, both the people were not having a permanent house. Ram Saran was living in a brick house, that too in the outskirts, that too it was a rented house. And Laka Singh house was just made out of a small hut with kacha leaves. Then hunger. No one were having the food which is said to be ultimate for them. They were just having 2 meals per day, and even the children were starving. Then, thirdly, you can see lots of people striving hard in order to get 2 meals per day, and there was no regular job, children. So, whenever you don't have the season, Laka Singh might be removed from the job. The same thing when the mill is not working, you can see to it that Ram Saran would not have any job over there. So finally, you can come to a conclusion, they will not have a clean water or a good sanitation, children. Okay, or a good sanitation. So all leading to yeah, hill health, where you can see a lot of problem as far as the health may occur, where they have to go for the medication, but even there a question mark arises whether these people will be able to afford money to the doctor as such. So, on the whole, with this brief description, I think I've made you clear what is actually a poverty and what are we going to study in this chapter, along with the two typical cases of poverty as such, children. Shall we have a quick recap with the PowerPoint? Yes. Yes, children. Of course, this is Online Teaching Academy Ekalaiva, which is just rocking the third chapter, that is poverty as a challenge. And of course, what I just had in my green board, everything, whichever I wrote, is very much over here. Of course, the pictures of Ram Saran and Laka Singh, okay, where you can see all these drawbacks can be seen in that picture as such. And the actual definition of poverty, every fourth person in India is said to be very much poor, and almost 27 crore people in India is said to be a poor person. And we do have a largest single concentration of the poor in the world, and we do vary, children. We do vary, where we can say that certain states are said to be very much rich enough, and of course, certain states are being said that they are the poorest states. This is an important one, children. Gandhiji is saying that India would be a truly independent nation only when the poorest of its people become free of human sufferings. So, when the poorest of the poor just get 3 meals per day, having a good shelter and clothing, really, it is said to be that where we are just evading the poverty from the society. Let Gandhiji's dream come true, children. These are the expected questions. What are the dimensions of the poverty? And what kind of people in India are considered poor? Of course, this is part one, children. It will be continued in the next video. We will just see to it that how we are going to see that how the poverty can be evaded from the society. Okay. Now, to just wind up, thank you very much. And in order to receive our online lessons, please press the button, subscribe it, and you will receive the latest update, children. Thank you. Have a nice day. Be safe and take care, children.